Chapter 4. The scream quickly changed to an outburst of laughter, loud and unrestrained. Rue looked up to see a remarkably pretty girl staring down at her with surprised delight. She was quite tall and broad-shouldered, and looked to be 20 or so. Her sleek black hair was pulled back in a long braid, and she wore a white cable sweater over jeans. "Stop it!" Rue demanded, standing up. "Stop laughing at me!" The girl did stop laughing, disarmingly fast. Her eyes grew wide as she gazed at Rue. "Ooh, so there it is," she said. When she didn't explain herself, Rue was forced to ask, "There's what?" The girl laughed again. Rue lunged at her then, her hands stretched out, intent on slapping or shoving, but the girl caught Rue around her middle. She tipped her down so she was parallel to the floor and held her like that as Rue kicked and screamed in a wild fit of anger. Remarkably, not a single kick landed. "There's the Fanshawe pride in you. Miss Valentine said she didn't see a single speck of it, but I guess she didn't get you mad enough." "Let go!" Rue screeched. "First calm down." "Let go!" "Calm down." That infuriated Rue even more, and she bellowed at the top of her lungs and flailed about so violently that this time she did manage a sharp jab of her elbow into the girl's ribs. The girl pulled in her breath so suddenly that Rue paused in satisfaction. But then the girl said, in a reasonably cheery tone, "Is that the best you can do?" Rue tried to do better, but the girl was strong and fast. She swiftly adjusted her hold. Now Rue's arms and legs were held so fast that she could not move them at all. She frantically tried to squirm out of the girl's grip, but she only managed to paddle her feet and twist her head about. "Tss, tss," the girl said quietly. Her mouth was so close to Rue's head that Rue could feel the warmth of her breath against her scalp. It was strangely pleasant. In another second Rue would remember to be angry again, but the girl let go right before that happened. Free, Rue jumped to her feet and backed herself up against the wall, staring at the girl. "Well, that was fun," said the girl, adjusting her sweater. "I'm Violet." She waited, but when Rue didn't respond, Violet answered for her. "Hi, Violet, I'm Rue." Rue's eyes were fixed on Violet, the way a wild cat watches a person who is cooing to it, steady and interested, but exceedingly cautious. "If you keep staring at me like that, I'm gonna laugh again," Violet warned, "and then we'll have to start all over." Rue looked away. "Thank you, and just so you know, I wasn't laughing at you. Not the first time, anyway. I was laughing because you scared the you-know-what-skis out of me. I thought you were the yellow girl. So, Miss Valentine says I'm supposed to make sure you clean yourself up." "That's my business, not hers." Violet cocked her head to the side and looked Rue up and down. "You know who you remind me of? My Aunt Fiona. Last spring she rode out to Donkey Island with a backpack full of beer and a 5-pound bag of cheese curd, then climbed up to an old osprey nest on top of a navigational marker. She sat there for days and days, poor Fiona, looking like a skinny old bird sitting on her eggs. Wouldn't come down, though we all begged and yelled and threatened from our boats. She said it was her business where she sat, and if the osprey didn't mind, neither should we. She lasted a good week until she rolled over in her sleep and fell straight into the river. Poor old thing floated like a dried-out leaf, still sound asleep. And where do you think she washed up? Right back on Donkey Island, not 20 yards from her house. How's that for luck?" Rue's jaw twitched. "Is that true?" "Of course." "She sounds crazy." "There's all brands of crazy," Violet answered, raising her eyebrows. "Personally, I don't give a baked bean if you want to go around looking like something drug up out of a swamp, but I like my job, and I need it. I'm not going to lie to you, Rue. I'll haul you into the shower and hose you off with your clothes still on if I have to." Had the threat come from Miss Valentine, Rue might have challenged it. In any case, she would have kicked and screamed and made sure Miss Valentine took that shower right along with her. But this girl, Rue could imagine her howling with laughter as she wrestled Rue into the shower, and that would be unbearable. In the large white and coral tiled bathroom, Rue stripped down. Her skin puckered up instantly from the cold. She gave a furtive glance at herself in the mirror above the sink. Bony, narrow shoulders, a hard-voiced chest. She lifted her eyes to see her face, and stared back at herself suspiciously. She didn't wonder if she were pretty or not. She knew that she wasn't. She shook her bangs to one side. In her reflection, she saw what she always saw. A downcast chin, the angry, caged-looking eyes. Her reflection shouted back at her. "This is what you are. In the cells of your body. It's in the coils of your brain." She looked away. On the sink was a dish of round pastel-colored candies that turned out to be soap. She picked them up, one at a time, and smelled each one. The smells were odd, flowery, but not like any flower she knew. She chose a yellow one and took it into the shower. The shower was good and hot, not like the tepid trickle of the trailer's shower. She showered quickly, rubbing the little ball of soap along the back of her neck and in her armpits, then sloshing a handful of shampoo through her hair. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in the bathrobe that had been left for her, she found Violet carrying in a tray of food. "Well, that's an improvement," Violet said as she looked Rue up and down. She placed the tray of food down on the window seat. "Nothing fancy," Violet said. "Just chicken and salt potatoes. You can leave the tray. I'll get it tomorrow." She started to leave, but Rue blurted out, "Don't go." Later, Rue wondered why she had said it. She had never in her life wanted company, and if Violet had hesitated for even a second, Rue would have taken it back. "All right," Rue said gamely, and plunked herself down on Rue's bed. She leaned back against the headboard and watched as Rue curled into the window seat. Violet was such a big, strong, capable-looking girl that people often mistook her for a beautiful brute, but during quiet moments, like right now, her features were subtle and thoughtful. Rue picked up a salt potato with her fingers and felt the delicate skin tear as she bit into it. It was good, and she was hungry, so she took a few more bites before pausing to ask Violet, "Are you going to tell Miss Valentine that I was in the East Wing?" Violet tipped her head to one side and frowned. "When were you in the East Wing?" "Just now. Back there." "You mean back in the girls' old dormitory?" No. Violet smiled, the worry leaving her face instantly. "That's not the East Wing. That's the old part of the West Wing." "Who lives in the West Wing?" Rue asked, thinking of the humming sound. Violet shrugged. "You. That's all. No one's lived in the West Wing for years. This whole house used to be a tuberculosis sanitarium for children. Oh, ages and ages ago. That's why us locals call it Cough Rock. It had a more official name, of course, but no one ever remembers it. The girls' dormitory was in this wing. That's the last room down with all the beds. And the boys' was in the East Wing. After the hospital closed down, the place stood empty, right up until Mr. Fanshawe bought it. The Fanshaws had a house on Scotch Pine Island. It's where your father spent his summers when he was a kid. But your uncle sold that about 10 years ago and bought Cough Rock. Seems like a funny choice, but your uncle does things his own way." Rue picked at the skin of a chicken leg, considering this. "What's he like, my uncle?" Violet raised her eyebrows and shrugged. "We don't see him very much. He travels." She stopped talking abruptly, though it seemed like she would say more. Rue took this in. She turned back to her food, chewing and thinking. "I heard someone humming when I was in the hallway," Rue said. "Humming?" Violet smiled a little. "Well, this house has got creaky old bones. It makes all kinds of noises, I guess." "It was a person," Rue insisted. "Maybe Miss Valentine was humming," Violet said falteringly. Rue could not imagine Miss Valentine humming. And anyway, the voice sounded lighter, younger. "You said something about a yellow girl," Rue said. "Who is that?" Violet widened her eyes. "Do you like ghost stories?" "I don't know," Rue answered honestly. "Let's find out." Violet leaned forward, clasped her hands together in her lap, and gazed intently at Rue. "Years ago, when Mr. Fanshawe first started renovations on the house, he hired some contractors from Clayton. Soon after they started work, the men began to see a little girl walking through the hallway, wrapped in a yellow sheet. The girl looked right at them, her eyes going all wide, and she whispered, 'Shoot.' Then she'd vanish right in front of your eyes. The men thought that someone must have shot the girl, but when one of them told the story to his great-uncle, who had been alive when the sanitarium was still open, the man shook his head. That child wasn't talking about guns. She was talking about the shoot. According to the old man, the sanitarium wasn't very good about keeping their patients alive. Well, when one of the poor little things died, the nurses would wrap them up in a yellow sheet and send them down the secret chute. The chute led down to the basement, and from there the sanitarium workers would take the body on a boat back to the mainland to be buried. This way they wouldn't upset the other patients and were able to keep the deaths quiet. That's awful. Rue looked away out the window. Far below, the water was black now, except for filaments of moonlight clinging to the low crest. "I'm a dope!" Violet cried. "Here I am, talking about a ghost after everything you've been through! Ignore me! All us folks from Donkey Island are the most superstitious people you'll ever meet. Don't believe a thing that comes out of our mouths. Of course, ghosts are nonsense. You don't believe in them, do you?" "Of course not," Rue said irritably. And she didn't, which made the humming all the more curious.